Welcome to Audience First, a podcast for tech marketers looking to break out of the echo chamber, to better understand their buyers, what motivates them, and what they hate that vendors do. It's time to unmute your mic. Are you ready? All right, welcome to another episode of Audience First. As always, I have a very special guest with me in the studio today in New York City. We have the one and only Kyle Wickert. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Happy to be here.
Amazing. So we're going to kick it off with my favorite questions that I ask every guest who comes into the show. Who are you? What do you do? And why the hell do you do it?
Oh, geez. So I am AlgoSec's field CTO. So I'm kind of responsible at AlgoSec globally for a lot of our pre-sales engineering. I work really closely with a lot of our strategic customers. Been with AlgoSec 13 years, so it's been a good run. And I really do what I do because, originally getting into cybersecurity was something that kind of came about unexpectedly.
Yeah. Really
unexpectedly. I just kind of came out of college and was looking for something, and an interesting job at a large Canadian bank kind of jumped out at me, and it just so happened to be a junior cybersecurity type analyst role, and after that, the rest is history, so to speak, and kind of learned first about AlgoSec and where I currently am in that role too.
Oh, wow. So remind me how long AlgoSec's been around?
So the company itself has been around well over 20 years, so early 2000s. AlgoSec was really born in the firewall analysis kind of functionality that everybody knows us for, right? If you Google AlgoSec, look us up, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But it's certainly so much more than that these days.
Right. And I want to know, this is a spicy question I ask every guest as well. I want to know what you hate most about the industry.
The politics.
Politics?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there kind of like a backstory there that, you can drill down into?
There's a little backstory. I won't get too deep into. I mean, there's just, in my role, right, you're designing solutions. You're working through different vendor evaluations, even back in my time working outside the vendor space. Just a lot of politics. It's just such a blocker to getting real stuff done. I just enjoy working with the technology. Yeah. And that's just the part of it I don't enjoy.
Yeah, I get you. What's your favorite part of the industry?
The pace.
Yeah?
The pace.
Fast?
Yeah, fast-paced, exciting, always new, always changing. A lot of people will go, oh, AlgoSec, that's just firewall stuff. Oh, Kyle, you must be bored of working with firewalls. But when day to day, I'm touching so many different technologies and working with customers with so many different technologies put together in some of the craziest ways you can imagine, right? Whether it's the firewalls themselves, now cloud, SASE technologies, SD-WAN, you're really touching it all.
Well, what does that fast pace, what are the implications on buyers and practitioners or ramifications? I mean, with keeping up or all that change in the dynamic nature of the industry?
I think the biggest one is making sure the vendors you're working with are partners, right? Because, and particularly, again, with what AlgoSec does and what I do day to day, we're always chasing, right? We're always supporting new capabilities that are coming out in the space that the vendors are offering. And we're always trying to keep up and working closely with our partners. Obviously, we strive to do. And one thing I spend a lot of time doing is saying, what are you doing next? Yeah. What are you planning? What are you thinking about doing? What is bleeding edge for you so we can keep pace and make sure we're aligned to what the customers are trying to do?
Right. Well, I want to segue into a spicy topic. It's actually regarding a post that came out this morning. And before we hit the big red button, I was like, Kyle, I want to touch on this post that just came out this morning. I'm not going to read the whole post. It's very, very long, and we're not going to discuss the, unfortunate news here. But one line that stood out to me was that network security is widely seen as a solved problem, and all the attention is on identity and cloud, There are barely any startups innovating in network, and all that is because no CISO in 2025 gets excited when they hear the word network. The irony is that network security companies have themselves become an entryway for attackers, but we're so used to it that there is zero appetite to invest in network regardless. Now, this is from Ross Haliluk. I'll attribute it to his recent LinkedIn post this morning. What's your take on that?
I think the network's still extremely relevant.
Why is that?
It hasn't gone away. It's really just morphed. It's changed. All the companies I work with and the businesses we see are simply stretching the network out into cloud, stretching it out into new areas. And the applications that run across them, if anything, are doing more with the networks that they're running on top of and demanding more from them. And so while it might not be top of mind because CISOs are focused on identity and cloud security, it's extremely relevant. And I think a lot of those security controls that are being implemented in the cloud or for identity or these different other control sets, they assume the problem is solved when it isn't, right? They all depend on a fundamental set of network controls being there that aren't always there. Again, in my experience, you'd be shocked the amount of situations you go into and you say, how are you driving change in your environment when it comes to policy in different places? And again, not just the firewalls, but SDN technologies, very, very expensive and complex filtering technologies, in data center fabrics in the cloud. And they go, oh, it's being done in a spreadsheet. Our business users just give us what they want in a spreadsheet and we open up in the network, right? So you can have this supposedly solved problem being done in a very archaic way from a management standpoint. And that there's a huge opportunity to continue innovation and modernization there.
Now, I kind of want to shift the conversation to how you guys are innovating over at AlgoSec. You guys just launched a campaign called to introduce Horizon, but more specifically, there are two components to Horizon, from my understanding. And I want to focus on ACE. So how about you tell me a little bit about kind of the decisions that were made? Why did you guys shift to that kind of position and the product as a platform? Take me through that journey a little bit of how it developed and what's out in the market right now.
Yeah, so like I shared a minute ago, right? Most people are familiar with AlgoSec as a firewall management solution.
Right.
And that is really a small part of what we do. It's a fundamental part of what we do, but it's a small part of what we do. And so as you said, we just launched this new Horizon platform. And the goal there is to make it much, much easier to deploy and get to value faster with the solution. And part of the move to Horizon is this idea that it's the applications that drive the connectivity, right? So we don't want to talk about individual firewalls, different devices. We want to talk about the applications that actually run the customer's business, regardless of the security devices that they happen to move over, right? Whether it's Palo, Zscaler, Checkpoint, Fortinet, any of those predominant vendors. And Horizon makes it very, very easy to deploy and use the solution to get there. Now, ACE, as part of that, takes everything we've done for a very long time and moves that out into the public cloud, right? Makes it very easy to bring AWS, Azure, GCP into that Horizon platform view from a visibility standpoint, automation, and obviously securing everything we see within it.
Now, taking a look at customers you work with and also prospects and in general practitioners in organizations, what are some common mistakes that organizations make with regards to securing cloud-native applications?
Something I always say is, in my experience, there's two kinds of customers that jumped into the cloud over the past several years, right? The ones who jumped in with both feet without looking, and the other ones who were a little more methodical. And we see them all, right? And some of the same challenges exist between them. Some are more pronounced in one than the other. In my experience, the customers that jumped in without looking, for the sake of speed, are now having to go back and clean up quite a big mess. Quite a big mess. And so there you've got situations where a lot of the same challenges you had into the data center, you just brought right into the cloud, right? Poor hygiene practices, things like that. Then you've got the other side where they were a little more methodical and they took a cloud-first approach and perhaps they delegated a lot of ownership, a lot of control to the app teams, right? Again, in the name of speed. But now you've got the challenges of, well, how do I make everything else that I need to make function in the network keep up with the speed of cloud? Because we're really talking about hybrid. Anytime you say cloud, we're really talking about hybrid, right? Whether that's hybrid from a cost standpoint, because you put some compute out in the cloud, now you need to bring it back because it costs too much, or that's just how you needed to architect a particular application. And so you need to deal with that complexity and make everything else keep up with the speed of cloud now.
How does the complexity increase as they scale?
We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases even millions of unique security policies, again, across cloud-native technologies, firewalls, SDN technologies, SASE, and it just takes everything and pumps steroids into it, right? Whether that's the risk of misconfiguration, whether that's opening up things that break the corporate governance, the list goes on.
So you mentioned sometimes when organizations move too fast, they kind of have to take a step back.
Yeah.
So can you take me through how organizations should start from day one building hybrid cloud security into their organization? Like what's kind of the process to do it methodically, correctly? I want to kind of get tactical and nitty gritty here.
Yeah, so I'll look at it through the lens of AlgoSec. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the cloud when it comes to identity and a lot in the CSPM space and things like that.
Yeah.
From an AlgoSec standpoint, what we see is large enterprises needing to move into the cloud rapidly, but also methodically. So from our standpoint, one of the most important things to do is understand what you're going to move before you move it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have data center infrastructure, if you have existing brownfield infrastructure, we want to be able to understand what's talking to what. Ideally, what constitutes a business application, right? We don't just want to take a block of things that exist in the data center and move them verbatim into the cloud. That's a recipe for something to clean up later. Once we understand that, we want to bite off the move in bite-sized chunks, right? And typically the best way to do that is application by application, business function by business function, at some level of aggregation that makes sense, and then port that connectivity into the cloud, right? Opening up the equivalent access across the cloud native controls, the NSGs, the cloud firewalls. A lot of customers, by the way, using third-party firewalls in the cloud, right? Something that was initially a big no-no, right? We want to use cloud native for everything was what we heard, but then we saw security teams realize, hey, we need a little more power in the cloud, right? So you're talking third-party Palo Alto, third-party Checkpoint, third-party Fortinet infrastructure being dropped into that cloud infrastructure at the key control points.
Yeah.
And that mixing together of technologies is part of the reason behind this methodical approach I'm kind of alluding to, right?
Can you take me through how automation plays a role in securing these highly dynamic environments?
Yeah, so everything's constantly moving, obviously. And you need to be able to provision access at the speed of business across all these different infrastructures. So going back to what I shared, right, it's seldom just one technology that's making these connections that are vital to the business work end to end, right? Perhaps you've got some compute in the cloud. Maybe you've got some crown jewel assets in the data center. You know, you're not just going through one firewall anymore. You're going through multiple cloud controls, perhaps something third-party deployed in the cloud into the data center where perhaps you're further filtered by firewalling infrastructure, maybe an SDN fabric on top of, for example, Cisco ACI or something along those lines. And so to be able to do that accurately, efficiently, and without introducing misconfiguration or risk, you absolutely need to be doing automation. And something I talk a lot about with customers is, you know, automation's a pretty nebulous term these days, right? There's no shortage of customers coming to us and saying, hey, AlgoSec, we really want to talk about automation. And something I try and talk about all the time is, okay, automation is much more than just pushing a policy.
Yeah.
Much, much more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It's about how we can use what we know about the network to make better decisions along the way. Where do you need to make a change? Should you even make a change? Because in the real world, what I find is, 20% of proposed changes are already facilitated by the existing infrastructure. Immediate reduction in operational risk if you can understand that and cut it out right at the beginning, for example.
Can you also take me through what role ACE has in enforcing compliance?
Yeah, so ACE is again leveraging on something we've done for a really long time, which is consistent monitoring of the infrastructure we're connected to. So we're looking at Azure Firewall, AWS Firewall, as well as the network security groups and security groups, monitoring them ongoing to ensure that policies are being used in the way they should, access is provisioned the way it should be, maintaining an ongoing state of zero trust compliance on the policies themselves. But ACE, and I want to kind of lean on this point pretty hard, ACE is one of the first areas where AlgoSec as a network security company is starting to get well beyond the network. We're starting to look at containers, compute resources, look at them from a malware, a vulnerability standpoint, a configuration compliance standpoint for misconfiguration, and actually, in the case of containers, understand how they're acting at runtime. And that's critical to our path forward, which is bringing everything together under the guise of a business application. And these business applications are no longer just IP-based resources. or just simple servers in a data center. They are cloud resources that are PaaS, such as Lambda functions and things like that.
Can you take me through kind of a customer story where they've used ACE to really improve their security in their hybrid cloud environments?
Yeah, I'll give you one great example. I won't say who.
Yeah.
But it builds off a pretty powerful capability that we just introduced, and it's really around the attestation to the ongoing need for access.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of customers initially come to us and they say, hey, we need to attest to our PCI compliance or DORA if we're talking in Europe, or just general hygiene. I need to be doing quote unquote firewall rule recertification.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ask all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had a lot of success moving customers, this one included, over to what we say is application access attestation, being able to not send your business users a spreadsheet with a list of firewall rules, but go to them and say, do you still need this connectivity that actually makes this application run? And we're able to do that because within ACE, we're able to attribute the NSG policies, the firewall policies, to the business function they actually serve,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that granularity kind of brings it all together in one place, which is that business application. So it's a much cleaner way to interface with a business to meet that ongoing compliance requirement. Because it's 2025. I mean, you can't be sending Excel spreadsheets of firewall rules to business users,
Right.
and say, do you still need this?
Right. What are some of the key metrics that your customer has measured to after adopting ACE that they report on?
Yeah, so reduction in operational risk, right? So again, going back to what I shared earlier, if we know we don't need to touch the infrastructure to make something run, cloud infrastructure included,
Yep.
Tremendous, right? Overall reduction in risk, right? By a lot of the security guardrails that are introduced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Avoiding introducing net new access that's breaking the network security standard, breaking best practice, things like that. And then a lot of the KPIs and metrics are a little intangible, right? Just the general reduction in friction with the business
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the overall change process, satisfaction improvements in developers, right? All too often, prior to the implementation of ACE, we see developers, needing to keep up with the speed of the business and being saddled with the fact that, well, now I've introduced this security control that maybe isn't cloud native, but I needed to be able to make that change just as quickly. And AlgoSec provides an interface for that developer to kind of see that hybrid view
Mm-hmm.
of how that cloud infrastructure fits in with everything else in one place.
You know, you say the word developer, and it makes me giggle a little bit because yesterday I was sitting at a conference listening to some CISOs who basically said, "You got to go hug your developers."
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, they're creating the lifeblood of the business, right? I
Right.
always hold up my phone
Yep.
and say it's the apps that are running the business, and who's building those? Those are the developers day to day, right?
Yeah. 100%. So let's go back to that customer story that we just talked about. And I want to back it up just a little bit. So like, what were some of the triggers or experiences that they had prior to adopting ACE that made them say, okay, now is the time for us to use ACE?
So it was actually, funny enough, the introduction of cloud,
Yeah.
right? Because they were traditionally an on-prem customer.
Mm-hmm.
Massive move to cloud. Cloud was the Wild West.
Yeah.
And then specifically, they needed to certify ongoing the access supporting their PCI business and the applications that fell into that bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and looked at it and said, okay, like I described earlier, we're not just talking a few hundred firewall rules. We're talking NSGs, cloud native policies.
Mm-hmm.
There were also some other technologies mixed in there. But it just grew and ballooned into a huge number of policies across a variety of different technologies. And I would say it wasn't even possible for a human to go through every single one just because of the scale and the multi-vendor complexity.
Can you take me through how ACE helps with visibility?
Yeah, so one of the fundamental things we do with the ACE technology when we connect into these public cloud infrastructures is we're modeling the topology. So if we're thinking Azure, AWS, GCP, we're talking the VNets, the VPCs, all the unique cloud networking constructs, right? Think vHub, think all of these unique functions from a network standpoint that exist in the cloud, and we're tying them in to the unified model we already build of everything else. So when we talk about visibility, first and foremost, it's visibility of the network in one place. And that is tremendous in complex multi-vendor environments. And then visibility extends into the resources themselves, right? The VMs, the containers, the serverless functions that are living on those networks. We actually understand how they fit into that model as well.
What do you think are some lessons other organizations can learn from ACE and kind of how your customers already have adopted them? Like, what are the key takeaways if they haven't adopted ACE right now or are not a customer? What can they learn from the experiences?
Number one
Yeah.
is don't just take the process you have today and put it into this shiny new automation tool.
Yeah.
Right? Use a lot of what the technology can offer out of the box, play with it, use it for a period of time, take the best out of that, the best out of what you currently do, and then slowly put it together over time, right? I've been at AlgoSec, like I said, 13 years, long enough to see the technology work amazing and deliver tremendous return for customers. Honestly, also seen it not be successful. Let's be candid. And the common theme when it's not successful is exactly what I said, right? Taking all the manual stuff you're used to and putting it in this amazing new solution you've purchased. And I always, first thing I tell the customers is exactly what I just shared with you, right? Let's take the opportunity to not just introduce technology, but look at the process around it, look at the stakeholders, and kind of repackage how you might be approaching the overall solution.
Is that part of the onboarding process?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something even before onboarding that I work with in pre-sales with a lot of our customers. I'm doing. First thing we want to do is deploy the on-prem infrastructure. So at AlgoSec, VM, hardware, also can run natively in the cloud infrastructure as IaaS. And then also you're leveraging that AlgoSec cloud infrastructure. So all of our ACE technology is cloud native, born in the cloud, for the cloud, and only what is necessary is pushed down into the rest of the hybrid solution. So the pace of adoption is very, very quick for ACE. And then when you want to add that hybrid piece, you can do that whenever you see fit. We're connecting in to the various subscriptions accounts you have deployed in your cloud infrastructure. All that is fully automated. So we're finding the ramp time for customers is drastically reduced.
Amazing.
For ACE as well.
I want to get into the fun part of the conversation. Not that this was not fun talking about ACE, but this is a segment that I did not tell you about. It's called the hot seat. Literally putting you in the hot seat with a quick fire challenge of questions. First thing that comes to your mind, shout it out.
We'll see how we do.
All right. You ready?
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. All right, let's do it. Your other colleagues and peers did an amazing job. So I think you'll be fine. All right. What is your product's dirty little secret? Something buyers never ask but should know.
Oof, that's a tough one. The vendor complexity we deal with.
Okay.
Just the vendor complexity, the depth of features we need to support with every solution we're working with.
Okay. Tell us about a challenge that shaped how your company does business today.
The big shift to the application-centric approach has been a huge shift for us. It's actually something I would say more of an arc than a shift, right? We kind of figured out many, many years ago that it was actually the applications that drive the need for the network security policies, and that arc has been slowly moving. But I think we're now at a place in the market where people are seeing what we're doing, and it's getting them excited. They're realizing.
What's one lesson you've learned the hard way that others could learn from?
Ooh. I think going back to what we discussed earlier, right? The idea that you want to just take the best out of what you do today, the best out of the technology, and put them together, not just put a square peg in a round hole, so to speak, in terms of taking very, very manual and archaic ways of doing business and putting them into a shiny new automation solution.
What makes you, AlgoSec, different from the competitors?
It's definitely that application approach. It really is. I always have to ask customers why, 3 or 4 times. Why are you adding that rule to the firewall? Why are you adding those NSGs to the cloud? They go, because I got to change for them, and that's what I'm being told to do. No. Why are you adding those? Well, it's the business driving the need for that access, driving the need for things to be secured, and for it to be dynamic, ongoing, obviously.
What's the biggest myth about your product category?
That it's just about firewalls.
Yeah.
It's in the name sometimes. It's the first Google search that comes up, but it's so much more than that.
Describe your product in 3 words. Could be 4. Your colleagues cheated, so it could be 4.
Application automation.
Okay, nice. 2 words. Biggest misconception about AlgoSec? It's kind of similar to...
It's kind of similar to the last one.
Last one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we can skip over that one. I'll give you that one. All right, so if AlgoSec were a superhero, who would it be?
Oh.
This one's interesting. I want to see if you're going to get it similar to others?
Iron Man.
Okay, why? Because you like him?
Because I like him.
Yeah,
Actually, it was the first one that came to mind.
That's a valid reason, folks. All right, so what's the future of security 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, so we at AlgoSec have a lot planned.
Okay.
AI is a bit of a buzzword, but we got a lot coming with AI in terms of interacting with our customers, interfacing with our business users and the technology with AI. We just introduced, actually, just very short time ago, some AI capability to discover and build and model application connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have a lot coming up in terms of what a lot of the vendors we integrate with are doing in cloud native management.
Right.
So think Strata,
Mm-hmm.
think cloud management technologies as well.
Amazing. Well, this, this podcast is really a bi-directional conversation. It's not just me grilling you. So is there anything you want to add or anything you want to ask or address to the audience today?
No, I think I'll say this, right? If you're looking at a solution to automate policy, whether that's homegrown, whether that's something you're scripting or building or buying off the shelf, really look at the topic of automation more broadly than just adding policies to devices.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that needs to be given a lot of thought, something that there's a lot of capability out there that can go into how you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that topic of intelligent automation we touched on earlier.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, we're headed towards the end of the episode, and you're always welcome back to the show. Anything else you want to impart on the audience?
No, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get a chance to come back.
100%. I will come back to New York. You are an hour away. I am not an hour away, but love the city. It's growing on me, surprisingly. Thanks for coming in today, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Are you going to RSA, by the way?
I will not be at RSA.
Black Hat? Anything?
Cisco Live.
No, I'm not going to be there. I'll be at RSA and Black Hat.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, well, folks, this has been another episode of Audience First. We are out.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Audience First. If you like what you've heard, feel free to follow or subscribe to Audience First on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast streamers.